file for citizenship, or eventually got in trouble, let's say got arrested for criminal offense or whatever, and get put into the immigration court, and immigration start looking at what you have done in the past, then those will bubble up, and that could really raise the challenge about legality of your green cards.
So is there a requirement from immigration to how long you have to stay with a company?
The immigration do not put a number.
Okay, so there's no official.
Yeah, they're not going to say 5 years or 3 years or 4 years, because then you bring back the ugly of this country. So they basically say fully intend to work permanently, and you just have to keep on working. So, I mean, some clients, they close the door and say, come on, just tell me, okay? I say, look, rule of thumb, I don't know, maybe 1 to 2 years, unless the employer and you have separate agreement that says longer time. Right. But I would see hard pressed for the immigration to challenge someone about legality of their green cards if they've already been working for a couple of years.
But is that, how would it look when you go for your permanent U.S. citizenship? That's what.
Well, but if you already work for a couple, typically when you file for U.S. citizenship, they're going to go through, the first question they're going to ask you is, how'd you get your green card?
Right.
Who sponsored you? Did you work for the employer? How long did you work for the employer? So yeah, I work for the employer. How long did you work? A couple years. Oh, okay, fine. Then move on. Okay. If you say, I don't know, a couple days, or I never worked for the employer.
No, just for you work for the employer for that whole process, which is
no.
about 2 years.
No, but that whole process doesn't count.
Oh, okay.
That whole process doesn't count to your credits. When I say a couple of years, after you get your green card.
That's important.
Yeah.
There's a lady who also asked a question for EB3 visa. If an applicant went through the first 2 stages and got a work permit from DOL and also finished a bachelor degree at the same time, should the applicant continue with his education and delay graduation until his I-485 got approved, or he can graduate prior to the adjustment of status or interview, or whenever interview?
Okay. By the way, the perm, okay, so the perm is just a certification, it's not a work permit. So getting this thing approved will not allow you to work, okay? Labor Department has no authority to give you authorization to work. So let's say you're under F1, you're still going to school, you go through this process, by the time you go in the middle of it, you got your degree or OPT or whatever, or you haven't finished yet, you still continue to go to school, and then you file the adjustment of status. You have 2 options. One, you could continue to maintain your F1 status and still go through this thing, okay? When you file this I-485 application, give you work permit. Do not use that work permit to work if you want to keep your F1, okay? Because if you use work permit to work, it will invalidate your F1. So you could just keep that work permit in your hand and continue to maintain your F1. And then by the time you go in for interview, if you get your green card, then you quit school and work for the employer, okay? But at the time of interview, immigration officer is going to ask you this. Oh, you have a work permit. You have F1. How come you haven't started working for the employer yet, right? Because intent. Right? You say you want to work for the employer, you got a work permit, how come you're not working for the employer yet? Well, some students, they really want to finish the school, or sometimes they're afraid. Say, look, I work for the employer, I don't get my green cards, I lose F1, I don't want to do that. So you could take the, it's a human nature. So you say, I want to be safe, I want to wait till I get my green cards, then I'll just quit school and start working. That's perfectly okay, but it has to be really genuine, okay? So I would prefer you start working, but then that would also mean that you'll be giving up your F1 status. So everybody's circumstances is different, and so we have to sit down and talk about it and just sleep on it before you make a decision on that.
So will you be in the U.S. legally when you are doing that process and you give up your F1 status?
If you already filed the I-485 application, I had a client who filed the I-485 application, and say, you know what, I'm gonna quit school, which is fine. But when you quit school, you have to make sure that you give your received notice of filing to your foreign student advisor, DSO, in school, because they need to update the system, say, to show that you're already doing the adjustment of status. Because if you quit school and not tell them, they're going to label you as, you know, absconding from going to school, and they'll report you to the ICE. You don't want to do that. So when you file this, give the received notice to the school, and then they'll update the system. Then your legal status would just be adjustment of status applicant.
So if you're on an F1, you can't change your status until you start the I-485 process. So
That's right. So even if you do this and this,
right, you still can't.
you still have to maintain your F1 status.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for graduate student, do they have to maintain F1 status or they maintain the OPT status?
Well, OPT and F1 is the same. OPT just a work permit, just the optional practical training work permit, but it's under F1. So the graduate student will still maintain the F1 status by maintaining the OPT obligations.
Mike, pursuing the question to that gentleman, you addressing the fast track to get change of status 1 month?
No, you mean the I-40? There's no premium processing for I-45.
Right, but was he asking about the 140, the 1 month
No.
premium process?
His question was what the status you're going to be in this period, if you know before you file the I-45 application, whether you could basically quit school while you're doing this process. And the answer is no. You gotta still maintain your F1 status or whatever non-immigrant visa status you have up until this. Okay. Well, up until this is filed, and then if you're more conservative, then up until you get your green card, then you quit whatever you have.
So when you have a work permit, what does that mean?
When you have work permit, means that you're authorized to work.
Can you get out of your F1 status?
Yes.
At that point?
Yes.
So earlier.
You could get out earlier.
You
That's
can go
correct.
earlier than-
But remember the reason. And there are many things in life that could happen. So if you're going for whatever reason, then you lose, you no longer, okay?
Yeah, so as I know that the OPT lasts for 1 year,
Uh-huh,
but for the first 90 days, then we have to get employed for the first
that's
90
right,
days.
uh-huh.
If we're unemployed for the first 90 days, then you lose the OPT, right? That's what.
Yeah, if you don't get a job, that's right.
So from step 1 to step 3, it takes like, let's say like 2 years.
Uh-huh,
For that 2 years, for the first year from step 1 to step 2, then I have to get employed by whatever employer.
yeah.
It could be unpaid works or paid work.
Hmm.
So from step 2 to step 3, it takes one more year. Then after my OPT first year, I
Uh-huh,
have to extend it for 1 more year, working with another employer to wait for my I-140 to
Uh-huh.
I-485.
okay,
Then after I got the one I-45, then I can quit that employer.
yeah,
And
but
start working for the employer that
that's
hired
sponsor
me.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, but when you finish your OPT, how are you gonna switch employer? If you already do OPT 1 year, that's assuming here OPT, right?
Uh-huh.
But over here, which would be another 6 to 12 months, you will not have OPT then.
For STEM.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
If you have STEM, that's, yeah, I mean STEM, you get 3-year OPT. 1 year, and you can extend it,
Uh-huh.
okay? So if you have STEM, you have enough time to do this,
Okay.
okay?
But then after that, I have to work for the company that sponsor me.
Yes. So then you will have to quit your STEM job and go work for the company. That's the reason you should always find an employer in your fields of expertise or specialization. So job where you don't want to be in, but
Can you say that again?
right. You should always find a job from an employer who's going to sponsor you, you like to do in a job in your fields of expertise. So that you don't want to just find any sponsor you, even the job that you like, okay? In a job that, but you only do it for that's that marriage.
Yeah, but that raises a question. So for the first year, if I find like an employer in my industry, and then I have to show my intention that agree to sponsor the green card. Then how can I prove it? Like,
well, no, but look, that's the reason I say you're getting a job with the employer in your industry. You should ask them if they're going to do this green card sponsorship for you.
If they don't.
If they don't, find another employer in the same industry.
But I'm really going to be fine with the employer, with the current employer. And to maintain my OPT status.
Okay. Well, look.
You mean that I start looking for other employers while OPT with the current employer?
Okay, if your employer and your goal is future green cards, I don't see any unethical or illegal stuff by looking for another job with another employer who could potentially sponsor you for green cards. Okay, but the question then I have is, if you find another employer in your industry who want to sponsor you for green cards, that means they want you, then why wouldn't you just go join them under your OPT? Why do you have to still work for this regional OPT employer?
I quit working here, can I still maintain my OPT status?
Yes, you just have to update that information with your foreign student advisor, as long as it's the same industry.
And how many days that I've got? How many allowed days that I am unemployed?
Unemployed?
Yeah.
90 days.
90, still 90 days.
Still 90
after I
days.
quit the employer.
That's right. So you can exceed that. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Why the people under the F1B they don't like allowed to switch from OPT direct to the any kind of B instead of in the S1BB?
Can they switch into different type of unemployment visa?
I mean, like a company sponsor for OPTs. Why don't they apply direct to the green card instead of go through the F1B?
Okay. The tradition that a lot of people do is one OPT, green card. And the reason is because the green card process, as you can see here, it takes over a year. But your OPT is only good for 1 year, unless you're STEM, okay? But that's if you major in business administration or accounting, you only get 1 year OPT. So OPT is not going to give you enough time to jump into green card process, unless before you graduate from school, you already find employer to card, but that's very rare, you know? So that's the reason most people go from from OPT to H-1B, then green card. But H-1B is a different issue. You could only the immigration could only issue 85,000 visas a year. And I think last year was 190,000 application filed for H-1B. This year is a little bit lower. The problem is about, you flip the coin, you may end up not getting it, okay?
One final comment.
Huh?
Can you make a comment that people in Vietnam can also go through this process?
Yeah.
And when they come, they already have a green card?
Yeah, sorry. So this EB3 process actually does not just it's not meant for people who are just here in the US. This green card sponsorship also apply from overseas sponsorship. The employer offer a job to somebody overseas. So by the time you go through PERM I-140 and consular processing, going for it to give you the visa to come in, that immigrant visa at a time when you arrive at the airport, the immigration will put, and that is the evidence of your green cards. So you be coming in as a green card, okay? And the green card is actually permanent. It's not conditional, okay? The card itself would expire in 10 years, but your status is perpetual. It's good forever, okay? This is actually offer more advantages than EB-5 or married to U.S. citizen. EB-5, the green card you get is conditional. It's only good for 2 years. And then before 2 years is up, you have to show the immigration that you hire 10 U.S. workers. And if you cannot show that, you lose your green cards. Married to U.S. citizens is the same thing. Oh, that's a temporary, but then within 2 years, your marriage fail, or let's say, in 2 years you still have to file something. They're going to investigate to see if you have a legitimate relationship. So this thing, when you come in, is a permanent green card. But again, when you come in, you got to work for the employer and up and up.
Câu hỏi là những cái người ở Việt Nam sang thì những cái người ở Việt Nam có thể đủ điều kiện mà có thể tiến hành cái quá trình này không? Thì câu trả lời của luật sư là có. Thì khi ở Việt Nam hoàn toàn có thể hoàn thành theo những cái step từ step 1 đến step 3 như bây giờ, và khi sang bên này thì sẽ được đóng dấu ở trong hộ chiếu là đã có thẻ. Thì cái thẻ xanh này có mặc dù là sẽ hết hạn cái giá trị đó, cái chương trình là có những cái điều lợi rất là có cái điều lợi rất là đặc biệt đó so với những cái chương trình như là EB-5 hoặc là kết hôn với người dân ở đây. Hai cái chương trình EB-5 và người dân ở đây thì thời hạn chỉ là 2 năm, và sau đó thì sẽ lại phải làm lại và sẽ phải chứng minh lại là với EB-5 là mình sẽ tạo cơ hội việc làm cho người công dân Mỹ nữa, và cũng như là khi mà kết hôn thì sẽ phải tiếp tục chứng tỏ cái status, cái trạng thái đó của mình với cái người đó. Nhưng mà cái chương trình EB-3 này thì khi mà đã được thẻ xanh rồi thì cái giá trị của cái thẻ xanh đó là cứ vĩnh viễn.
Sorry. Can you say again at which step that the work permit is come to us?
When you file the adjustment of status application, when you file this application, you cannot travel overseas anymore. Okay?